Welcome everyone to our Tuesday call. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and give the medical disclaimer. So the information provided is for educational purposes and is not intended as medical advice or a substitute for medical advice of a physician or other qualified healthcare professional. We do not aim to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any illness or disease. And you should always consult with a doctor or a healthcare professional for medical advice or information about diagnosis and treatment. The information in this presentation has not been evaluated by the FDA or any other medical body. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Dr. Dori Naerbo, and I'm your host on today's call. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a clinical researcher and an author of several books. It's pretty boring saying that, right? Now here comes your turn. Here comes yours. So, well, anyways, welcome everyone to the product Q&A call with Clayton Thomas, who is the chairman and founder of Root. Clayton has over 25 years of experience in the health and wellness industry, and of those 16 years, he's focused on detoxification and nutraceutical formulations. A simple philosophy, cure the cause. Hello, Clayton, and welcome to our Tuesday call.
Hold on, did you just say like one of my favorite phrases and you just snuck it in? Or were we talking about Q&As, or were you just kind of giving me hope?
Well, if we have time, we'll do the Q&A.
All right, let's have some fun.
I am recording, right? Is my recorder on? I think so. You are, I see the little red light flashing, so it should be okay.
Yep, we're good.
All right. Okay, so today I want to talk about the F word. And it's not what you're thinking about. See, I know how your mind thinks, so that's why I had to say that. It's not what you're thinking, but it's about fluoride and how Clean Slate is an important foundational product that everyone needs from womb to tomb. But first, I want to recap our talk from last week. So last week we had our Testimonial Tuesday because it was the first Tuesday of the month, and we got to meet with Romaine, Andrea, and Birgit. Romaine had Epstein-Barr and Lyme. Andrea had Lyme heavy metal toxicity from the implants that she had. And then, of course, Birgit had weight loss, all kinds of different improvements using the Clean Slate products and the 0N. So the F word, what is it? Well, did you know that fluoride is actually called the genius stone? Fluoride is the main component of fluorite, a crystal form of fluorine. I should actually say that fluorine is actually known as the genius stone, which melts away very easily. In its raw state, it's extremely colorful, as you can see, and the most common variety exhibiting these clear and green purple colors. And in ancient Egypt, the ancient Egyptians used fluoride to carve statues and scarabs, and they thought it had magical powers to aid in clear thinking, and that's why it's called the genius stone. So today fluoride is used for carvings as well as jewelry, and fluoride will glow or fluoresce under ultraviolet light. It's one of the first substances in which the natural phenomenon of fluorescence was studied, and the term fluorescence comes, this is where the name comes from. So, however, the fluoride that we know is synthesized in a laboratory, and most of the fluoride added to toothpastes and mouthwashes fall into this category. So why is that? It's easier to control the chemical compounds and strength by creating it under laboratory conditions. So the history of fluoride. Well, this was really interesting. So in 1901, a young dental school graduate named Frederick McKay moved to Colorado Springs to open a dental practice. He was surprised to observe that many of the locals suffered from brown stains on their teeth. And sometimes these stains actually looked like caked on like dark chocolate. And in 1909, McKay enlisted the expertise of a well-known dentist, Dr. Black, to investigate the sources of the stains. And they worked together for 6 years and found that nearly 90% of children native to Colorado Springs suffered from these stains. So McKay got word from about another area of this phenomenon occurring in a small town in Arkansas that was actually owned by an aluminum plant called the Aluminum Company of America. But because the Americans made a mistake and they didn't add the I in, it's actually aluminium, but for Americans we call it aluminum. Okay, so what happened was that the residents were affected, by the stained teeth in this one particular town, but other people around this area was not. So the Aluminum Company of America's chief chemist named Churchill, he analyzed the water with the most powerful tools that were available at that time. And what Churchill found was that they had high levels of fluoride in the water. And these findings were later confirmed from test results from Colorado Springs. McKay found the answer to the brown teeth, the brown stain problem, that they were due to increased levels of fluoride. And because of this, when learning this, the National Institutes of Health decided to investigate the water fluoride issue and the effects on the teeth. And in 1945, the first town added fluoride to its drinking water. That was Grand Rapids, Michigan. And it brought down the rate of childhood tooth decay by a staggering 60% with no adverse effects aside from a few cases of mild fluorosis. So today, fluoride can be delivered topically, it can be systemically, it is used to strengthen teeth already present in the mouth, making them more resistant to decay. So topical fluorides encourage remineralization of enamel, and it also inhibits bacterial metabolism, reducing the growth of plaque bacteria. And the modes of topical fluoride delivery include toothpaste, gels, mouth rinses, and professionally applied fluoride therapies. So according to the World Health Organization, enamel fluorosis can develop only in children as it results from intake of high levels of fluoride during the period of tooth development. And it's characterized by the appearance of these little white areas on the enamel. And in this form is considered more of an aesthetic issue. And in the more severe forms, as you can see, they have like stain and pitting in the teeth. And you can see here that the treatments of fluorotic teeth are pretty limited. The mildest form is they recommend bleaching. That would probably be like an A and B. And then there's other treatments that are more moderate, which include like microabrasion, where the outer affected areas of the enamel are abraded from the tooth surface in an acidic environment. They can use composite restorations, and then they can also use aesthetic veneers, and then of course, prosthetic crowns. So you end up losing your teeth anyways. Okay, so this is really important because from children, you know, like if you can see here, there's a piece of rice that is for children between ages like from 0 to 2. This is the size of toothpaste that should be put on their toothbrush. And then from 2 to 6, it should be the size of a pea. And from over 6, then they say, okay, use the full brush. But this is really important because, you know, fluoride is a neurotoxin. So babies and children under 4 years of age are considered to be at risk for dental fluorosis of the permanent teeth and the first molars because the calcification and the maturation of these teeth occurred during this period of life. And so the problem is that, with young children, the use of toothpaste is the issue that they have is swallowing it, and we don't want them to swallow it. So parents need to be strongly advised to apply an age-related amount of toothpaste and supervise until at least children are 7 years old. So there are two types of, there's two types of fluorides, or basically what you need to know is that there's the natural occurring fluoride and that there's the synthetic type of fluoride. And the natural version of fluoride is called calcium fluoride and is usually found in soil. In addition, trace amounts of calcium fluoride is also found in spring or natural sources of water. Of course, like anything else consumed in excess, extreme excess, this type of fluoride does have the potential to cause health problems as well, just like the synthetic version of it. So here I thought this was kind of interesting because I really couldn't find a lot of information on, like different countries, who's fluoridating, who's not fluoridating, and nothing seems to be updated. But I found this, I thought this was really interesting. And because you can see like the fluoridated and the unfluoridated countries, I mean, it's the same trajectory. It's still, going down. So it made me think about, and maybe that has to do with the education process of teaching people, about brushing their teeth and how to do it and things like that. And so that didn't seem like the fluoridation, unfluoridated and fluoridated really made a difference here. So sources of fluoride. I thought this was really interesting because this was actually done by, this is a campaign, Strengthen Your Body with One Glass at a Time. It was a campaign for dental health that life is better with teeth. And this was put on by the American Academy of Pediatrics. But fluoride in the water you drink and the foods that you eat increases the absorption of lead into your body by 6-fold. So fluorinated water pulls heavy metals out of your water pipes, your aluminum cookware, brass plumbing fittings, and even your metal fillings and crowns that accumulates these heavy metals into your body. And fluoride combines with these heavy metals and concentrates them into your gut and bloodstream. Clayton, you can just jump in anytime you want. So many dental products now contain fluoride, including over 95% of toothpaste. And studies show that significant number of children swallow more fluoride from toothpaste alone than is recommended as a total daily ingestion. And then we have processed and prepared foods. They're made with fluoridated water. Everything from canned beans to bread to salsa to soup may contain fluoridated water. It doesn't matter even if it's organic. Even if you don't live in a community that adds fluoride to its water supply, you will still be exposed to fluoridated drinking water. And this is because once fluoride is added, it winds up in almost all processed beverages and foods. And studies have shown that sodas, juices, sports drink, beers, and many other processed foods, including infant foods, now have elevated fluoride levels. And so this is the main reason that you need to cook from scratch and make everything let me see. Okay, there. Did you do that, Clayton?
No, you got it.
Okay. So this is, and like I said, this is the main reason that we need to cook from scratch, make everything, from using, filtered water that will filter out the fluoride. So the main reason that juice boxes are so bad for kids, it's not the sugar, it's the fluoride. So if you're going to give kids juice boxes, it should be organic. And unfortunately, sorry, I hate to say this, Clayton, but no hot dogs or chicken nuggets.
Hey, as long as the corn dogs aren't off the list, because the breading on the corn dog offsets the hot dog.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that. Okay, so As you guys probably know, a recent congressional study found that the top baby foods are contaminated with dangerous levels of toxic heavy metals with arsenic, lead, cadmium, mercury, and they found that this is like in excess of the recommended limits according to this new review, this oversight committee. And babies, the problem is that babies' developing brains are exceptionally sensitive to injury caused by toxic chemicals. And due to their size, their developing organ systems, they absorb more of heavy metals than adults, including fluoride. So I brought that up because fluoride actually potentiates the heavy metals, which, you know, and also it just basically increases the heavy metal poisoning. And like I said before, fluoride increases the absorption of lead into the body by 6-fold. So this exposure can lead to untreatable and frequently permanent brain damage, resulting in reduced intelligence, for example, loss of IQ points or disruptive behavior. This was in a committee study. I mean, it just came out. So for example, a recent study estimates that exposure to environmental chemicals, including lead, are associated with over 40 million total IQ points lost in 25.5 million children. And for every one IQ point lost, it's estimated that a child's lifetime earning capacity is decreased by $18,000. So children and babies are especially vulnerable to fluoride because of their upper limits of the fluoride is much lower than adults. And baby formula is very high in fluoride. Formula-fed infants receive 50 to 100 times more fluoride than exclusively breastfed infants. And breast milk contains no fluoride. And then we have pesticides. You know, your fruits and your vegetables, if they're not organic, are one of the biggest sources of fluoride in our diet. So the reason for this is that the fruits and vegetables that are grown conventionally are sprayed with a fluoride-based pesticides. It's called cryolite. And it is the main fluoride-based pesticide that is used on fruits and vegetables according to the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency. And it's used predominantly on grapes, on potatoes, and citrus fruits like oranges, grapefruits, lemons, limes, tangelos, and tangerines. In addition, cryolite is also used on apricots, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, collards, eggplant, kale, kiwi, kohlrabi, lettuce, melons, nectarines, peaches, peppers, plums, pumpkins, squash, tomatoes, berries. I mean, the list keeps going on. Cocoa powder and walnuts, and they all have very high levels of fluoride. So the bottom line here is to go organic. So in an effort to be healthy, a lot of us has ditched the coffee and the teas. And switched from soda to kombucha tea, for example. But unfortunately, whether it's organic or not, tea, whether it's black tea, oolong tea, white tea, or green tea, and fermented teas, they are all very high in fluoride. And the reason for that, I mean, actually, it's because the tea plants are absorbing the fluoride from the soil. And tea has 5 to 10 times more fluoride than a can of soda. Now, that doesn't mean that you should drink soda instead of tea. So, there's also numerous studies that have linked this excessive tea consumption to a bone disease called skeletal fluorosis. And if that wasn't bad enough, we have, fluoridated pharmaceuticals as well, which that was a big surprise. I didn't even know about that. So there's an increase in incorporating fluoride or fluorine into our pharmaceuticals. In fact, 20 to 30% of the drugs contain this element, including most of the widely prescribed drugs, such as the well-known antibiotics like Cipro, anti-inflammatories, antidepressants, cholesterol-lowering medications, and even some inhaled anesthetics. So you might know some of these drugs by Xanax, Prozac, Lipitor, Celebrex, Paxil. Also, another source is foods made with mechanically separated meats, mechanically deboned meats. So for example, like chicken fingers and nuggets, they contain elevated levels of fluoride due to the contamination from the bone particles that occurred during this mechanical deboning process. The bones of the animals contain the highest amounts of fluoride. In animals that are fed, mostly, fed grains, mostly soy and corn, they're, sprayed heavily with fluoride-based pesticides, not to mention glyphosates. So mechanically deboned and separated meats like chicken nuggets and bologna, and these Slim Jim snacks, I don't know what they're called here, but well, you know what they are, Clayton, in the States, those little meat sticks, those
Yeah,
salty little,
the
yeah.
terrible meat snacks that aren't really meat.
Yeah, they're really gross. There are those things like all mashed up together. And so they're very high in fluoride. And infant food also has the highest fluoride content, followed by chicken sticks, lunch meats, canned meats, and a single serving of chicken sticks alone provides about half of a child's upper limit of safety for fluoride.
Can I pause you right there for a second before?
Yeah.
Oh, this is one of my favorite subjects. God bless it. So what is so crucial? Can you go back one slide real quick?
Mm-hmm.
So, because I don't want to get too ahead. So what you're talking about there is a term that has multiple connotations for many people. And it's so crucial to understand this. When we talk about removal of heavy metals, the clinical term for that is chelation, right? Which is to claw and remove. People know about chelation because of, that process. The other side of chelation you hear in minerals, right? Is you hear about chelated minerals, that they're more absorbable, that they're already digested. And when we talk about the issues of biomagnification of environmental toxins, this is actually the mechanism that makes this stuff so bad. And I'm an O blood type, so you will never hear me talk about being vegetarian or vegan. And I grew up in a veterinary practice, as everyone knows, and I love animals too much to not eat them. But what is so crucial is when we talk about being victims of our environment, is this chelation aspect, because what all of these animals, whether it's in the water, and we talk about fish and people talk about farmed fish versus wild fish, this just in, it doesn't freaking matter. They're all polluted. They're all toxic. And whether we talk about livestock, doesn't matter what kind it is. Doesn't matter if it's organic, grass-fed, wild-fed. Guess what? They're all polluted because they live in the same environments that we live in. And if you've gone over the glyphosate conversation, we know that 95% of all the farmland and grassland in the United States is toxic with glyphosate. But why is that bad? It's not just in the garbanzo beans and the corn and the chickpeas and all of the other vegetables that we eat and the fruits that we eat. It's in the water supply, as Dori was mentioning. It's sprayed on foods as a desiccant. It's sprayed on the foods that the animals are fed. And this is where the evil really begins, is when animals receive this stuff, it's chelated into their body, because what happens is those toxins, in the same manner that they go into us, do the same effect in animals. So these toxins, the glyphosates, the heavy metals, the fluorides, they're broken down or they're stored in fat and in bones and in tissue. And then because they're already stored in a separate biological organism, it means they're chelated in the other manner, not removed, but made more bioavailable, which means they're even more toxic. Meaning, no matter where you get your food from, whether it's animal or agricultural, this stuff's freaking nasty. But this is this is the crazy part. We can't get away from these things. They're so pervasive that every aspect of your life is tainted. And your kids are being raised in an environment that is more toxic than you've ever imagined. Because the world's never been more polluted than it is now. We have no frame of reference. So when we try to do healthy things, and I think this is why this is the perfect transition to the next slide, what's stored in the bones and what's stored in tissue, we think is good stuff, but it's also some of the bad stuff. So then we get to go forward, and you get to get into one of my favorite subjects, because I had amazing bone marrow and pork belly for the Super Bowl. And you got to think, what's the tastiest part of meats? When I eat steak, I order ribeyes. You know why? Because it's well marbled like me. Because with the fat creates the flavor, but the fat is where all of the trash is stored. Why do we love pigs? We were talking about this morning because Christina made bacon for breakfast. And we're like, why does bacon taste so good? It's because pigs are committed, right? A chicken lays eggs, they're involved. But when you get bacon, that pig was committed because he sacrificed himself for the greater good. But the best part of the pig is the fat, it's the pork belly and such. It's all the toxins, all the chemicals, because pigs don't sweat. They store it all. So you sacrifice for the sacrifice. So you have to think of these things because we're just freaking polluted. It's a beautiful cesspool, as we continually talk about. And then we get amazing bone broth. So Dori, it's all yours.
Well, thank you for that interjection there. I'm sure you have something to say about this. So, well, of course, animal bones are known to contain trace amounts of toxic metals in addition to minerals. Calcium supplements that are made from bone meal have a lead level in the range of, it actually is quite high, and even have cadmium level as well. And simmering bone broths of animal bones may it also contains other metals and it's causing dietary exposure. So the presence of toxic metals in bone broth has rarely been studied. I mean, this is all the rage, right? Get the bone broth, cook up I've even done it too. I mean, like 48 hours cooking the bone broth. You have to do the vinegar first, to release everything. And then when I started looking at oh my gosh, what have I just had? All this for the collagen. So then that leads you to that other conversation that you're going to have later about that, because you know what? I mean, you don't need that. So, because we have the best collagen supplement, right? So anyways, but you have heavy metals in the bone broth that, you have, the cadmium, you have the lead, and this is also present in the commercial bone broths. So a lot of people are going out buying these, bone broths, and they're just full of lead. And lead and fluoride, like I said, these two go hand in hand, because fluoride increases the lead concentration. And this is actually found deep into the bones. Lead is really into the skeletal system and in the bones, big time. So you're getting a big, heavy dose of lead when you're having bone broth.
But here's one thing for that too, that you have to apply, because the science speaks on animals and humans, because we are just more advanced animals and our biology is very similar. Why do women become hormonal later in life? Why do women have osteoporosis? Why do women have brain fog? And why is that all described as menopause? Well, around the age of 50, that lead that is stored in bone in animals and humans starts to leach out of bones back into the bloodstream. And what does lead cause? Well, lead's a neurotoxin, so it can cause brain fog. Lead is also hormone mimetic, so it'll block estrogen binding sites. So the natural estrogen that your body is producing can't get to its binding sites. It starts to build up in your bloodstream, so women become hormonal. By leaching out of your bones, the lead creates gaps in your bones. They become weaker because what the lead has displaced, as far as calcium and vitamin D and such, leaves your bones weaker, which is osteoporosis as a diagnosis. So is it that women have menopause? Or are they just polluted? And you start to see the process start to kick in over time because of how this chelation of these metals takes place and is distributed and redistributed over time. Here's the other part. You have all these toxins that are released back in your bloodstream from the bone. What's your body got to do? It's got to store it. Oh, so where's it going to be stored? Could be stored in tissue, right? It's going to go to your liver, going to go to your kidneys, but it's going to go to fat. So you have this vicious cycle. These toxins start getting released from bone. You have these weaknesses that take place. They screw up your metabolism. Your endocrine system doesn't start to work as well. So your metabolism slows down. Those toxins get stored in fat. So you get fatter over time, no matter what you do. It's a vicious cycle. And you try to do things well, but what does this lead to? We want to eat well. I love bone broth. I love corn dogs. I love pork belly. I love ribeyes. You know what? I'm not going to stop eating them. But what do you do to prevent what's going on in your environment? That is the one thing you have to do. You can't be afraid of what's in your environment, what's going on. What you have to do is be cognizant of the effects of your environment and know the things you can do to get the stuff out so you can enjoy it. Because there's no reason to be afraid, because as I learned by watching G.I. Joe as a kid, that knowledge is power and knowing is half the battle. Acting is the other part. Back to you, Dr. Naerbo.
Okay. Well, this is a really interesting study. This was done in 1975. And so cooking foods or boiling water in Teflon pans actually increases the fluoride content of your food. I didn't even think about that. I didn't make the connection until I started doing the research. I'm thinking, oh my gosh. So I just like dumped out all my Teflon pans now and switched to stainless steel and ceramic. So anyways, so this is a study done in 1975, Full and Parkins, and they reported into the Journal of Dental Research that boiling water in Teflon pans produced a pronounced increase in fluoride levels. And Teflon is made from fluoridated chemicals. And thus the relationship between Teflon use and fluoride contamination of food is plausible. So in this study, they had a control. They had used aluminum, stainless steel, Pyrex glass, and Teflon. And they boiled equal amounts of fluoride, concentrated water in each pan for 15 minutes, resulting in a pronounced increase of fluoride in the Teflon coated pan, as you can see in this example of E. But interestingly enough was that the aluminum pan showed a notable decrease, whereas the fluoride concentration of the water boiled in the stainless steel and the Pyrex showed little change. So despite the potential significance of these findings, there has been virtually no attempt to replicate the findings since 1975. I mean, that's crazy, right? Like, they're not even looking into it. So why is that? I thought that was kind of interesting. Well, Teflon has pans have existed since 1960, and today 70% of all cookware sold is nonstick. And more concerning is that companies involved in manufacturing Teflon have not been above board about the effects of the chemicals used in the manufacturing process. And it actually took a court order in 2000 to get DuPont to release their studies about PFOAs, which are man-made chemicals. These can be found in industrial applications, including carpet, upholstery, apparel, floor wax, textiles, firefighting foam, as you know, Clayton, and sealants. And you guys might know this by Scotch Guard. You know, this is the stuff we all spray on our shoes, you know, Scotch guarding our shoes, water protection and all this kind of stuff, and your clothes. So this is like, I really encourage.
My Scotch comes in a bottle, by the way. Okay. Not in a spray. Sometimes it's well aged.
Well, this is I encourage you guys, if you're really interested, to read the story of this New York Times magazine, The Lawyer Who Became DuPont's Worst Nightmare. I mean, Ron Billett, he was actually a corporate defense attorney for 8 years. He is the guy that would actually defend a company like DuPont, for example. And he actually grew up, I think his grandmother, he used to go visit his grandmother on this farm, and his grandmother called him and asked him to look at this case where there were like 200 cows just dying left and right. And the farmer was personal friends of his grandmother, so he decided that he would go and investigate this. And this is what led to this these documents being well, actually these documents, it was like over 100,000 documents that he had to sift through in no particular order. He spent months like just sorting through all these documents. And what it revealed was that 3M and DuPont had been conducting secret medical studies on PFOA for more than 4 decades. And in 1961, DuPont researchers found that the chemical could increase the size of liver in the rats and rabbits. And a year later, they replicated these studies with dogs. And PFOA, this particular structure, made it very difficult to degrade. It's also bound in plasma protein in the blood, circulating through each organ in the body. So in 1970, DuPont discovered that there were high concentrations of PFOA in the blood of their factory workers at Washington Works, and they didn't tell the EPA at that time. So in 1981, 3M, which continued to serve as the supplier for PFOA to DuPont and other corporations, found that investigation of the substances caused birth defects in rats. And after 3M shared this information, DuPont tested the children of pregnant employees in their Teflon division. And of 7 births, 2 had eye defects, and DuPont did not make this information public. So, but anyways, the article, that's a really interesting story. What this guy, the farmer, what he had to do his own autopsies on his own cows because the veterinarians wouldn't even come out. And he saw like the cow's teeth, they were like totally black. The eyes were like blue. His cows were like frothing at the mouth from the runoff of these plants of DuPont. So that was a really interesting story. So I would encourage you guys to read that. So fluoride is it's a common air contaminant in industrial workplaces, and as a result, workers in many heavy industries, including aluminium, fertilizer, iron, oil refining, semiconductors, steel industries, they routinely get exposed to high levels of fluoride. And of course, this causes significant risk factors for respiratory disorders. Airborne fluorides is a huge source of fluoride intake. So, as we know, it's in the air, it's in the water, it's in the soil, it's in the food, just, it's like glyphosate. And wow, I was surprised to learn about this. We even have fluoridated salt. Did you guys know that? There's actually, you really need to be good label readers and make sure you're not getting this kind of salt. And if that's not enough, we even have fluoridated milk. Like, milk fluoridation is required or authorized in various countries in Europe and elsewhere. But in the US, milk fluoridation is not currently legal because it lacks FDA approval. So this was interesting because this is in the UK. I believe actually this is, I don't know if this is Blackpool Council. They're they have this in the schools, fluoridated milk. So what doesn't contain fluoride? Well, I think this pretty much says it all.
Well, does that say no?
But there's no such thing as a truly pristine nature anymore.
What? Are you saying that we live in a cesspool?
Yes.
But no, we live in this beautiful environment where there's pegacorns and there's just happiness everywhere. Oh, that's my world. Sorry. No, I mean.
Well, you're sharing her with us. Where is she?
Right.
Is she
But
sitting right there beside you?
I wish Mama was here. It's crazy time right now, but
Okay.
you can't get away from this, and this is the whole point, right? Keep going. That you're killing this, by the way. This is amazing.
Oh, but what's next? Looky here. Now we're going to talk about, oh, guess what? Health effects. Look at all those things. And like here, we're just like barely touching the surface, but look at all those little red dots there. I mean, that's all brain stuff.
But the cool thing is you left the feet, and neuropathy is one of the biggest things as well.
Well, yes, but I couldn't get everything. I only have a
I know
certain amount of time.
I know you do so much, I think. And I want everyone to understand this real quick. Dori created this slide. So your genius is beyond what has been done before.
Thank you.
Proceed.
So let's look at this. Fluoride passes through the placenta directly to the fetus. Who knew, right? Studies show that the fetal brain is one of the organs susceptible to fluoride poisoning. In fact, there was, I believe it was 6 mother offspring IQ studies done. They measured pregnant women's urinary fluoride levels and paired cognitive testing with their offsprings at various ages up to 12 years. And each study found a lowered IQ in the offspring of women with higher fluoride levels in the urine. And a later study by Green in 2019 compared women living in fluoridated and non-fluoridated communities. And the researchers reported that there were lower IQ in children from women living in the fluoridated communities. And the public health community was alerted, yet nothing has been done to inform pregnant women or the medical community about these findings.
So let me jump in on this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told not to have a political conversation. So what we're going to do is have a demographical conversation. In the United States, there's been movements in different cultures and different areas of demographics. And if you look at the statistics of lower IQ, higher rates of crime, unwed mothership, there's one specific population that has all 3 of those factors, and it's correlated to 2 things. One is lead, and the other is fluoride. So when you look at campaigns, and we won't say eugenics, because that's a word that some people find to be offensive. But why is it that in specific parts of our population, in specific demographics, that you see higher rates of use of fluoride? You see in areas where there might be lower incomes, and there are areas that are populations of people that don't look like me, even though I'm Black Irish. And you see higher uses of fluoride in water supplies, and the recommendations for toothpaste that have fluoride in them, or maybe that they're subsidized and there's more fluoride used in schools. And you go, why does that happen? And why do we continually see this? But the bigger question is, what are we going to do about it? My oldest son is teaching in Louisville right now. He's getting his master's degree paid for because he's teaching in the inner cities in Louisville. And he's beaten on me for the last year about what we do with Root, how Clean Slate works, and what our real goals and mission is. And what he keeps beating on me about is the cost of the product is more than a lot of those who really need it can afford. And this speaks to the challenge, right? But this also speaks to mission and purpose. As we grow, the biggest thing that you can do, and this is why we have a harvest rewards bonus, if you want to know the secret, is as you begin to share and as you begin to reap more rewards, you should be able to give back. And there are populations of people that need an income stream, but they more importantly need the ability to get this stuff out that is destroying them from generation to generation. So think about that. Think about how you can reach out and what you can do, for those around you, how you can impact your population, because you have a model of social sharing and compassionate commerce that allows you to give back in so many different ways. And the more you give, the more you receive. So use your influence wisely. Your turn.
Okay, well, as of May 2020, a total of 75 studies have investigated the relationship between fluoride and human intelligence. And of these investigations, 67 studies found that elevated fluoride exposure is associated with reduced IQ in humans, while over 60 animal studies have found that fluoride exposure impairs the learning and or memory capacity of animals. And in human studies, they based on IQ examinations of 24,623 children. This is 65 studies, and 245 adults, which comes from 2 studies, provided compelling evidence that fluoride exposure during early years of life can damage a child's developing brain. And of course, we had this in our autism call. So we know already that research reported that both fluoride and aluminum individually are poisonous to the nervous system, and together they're much worse and can increase the risk of autism spectrum disorder. Over 400 studies link fluoride to neurological effects. In fact, fluoride has been linked to neurological and psychiatric disturbances since the 1930s. And the additional increased exposure to fluoride has also been linked to ADHD. So exposure to fluoride also aggravates the impairment of learning and memory and neurological, neuropathological lesions. And this is actually related to the hippocampus. So the hippocampus plays a critical role in the formation and organization and the storage of new memories, as well as connecting certain sensations and emotions to these memories. In animal studies, fluoride can cross the blood-brain barrier and the plasma membranes of cells, allowing this ion to accumulate in the brain, where it can damage neurons. And fluoride injuries in the central nervous system by several different mechanisms, in particularly elevating the stress of elevating basically oxidative stress, which is, as we know, something we can't feel. Oh, here's a good one, Clayton. This is interesting. This is the pineal gland. So the pineal gland is a unique organ that synthesizes melatonin and is a potent protective antioxidant. And melatonin is the recognized major product of the pineal gland. And melatonin is the derivative of tryptophan. So, and melatonin and the mesenchymal stem cells have an important role in the pineal formation and bone formation. So it's necessary, like an intact and functional pineal gland is necessary for preserving optimal human health. Unfortunately, this gland has the highest calcification rate among all organs and tissues of the body. And fluoride naturally is attracted to calcium. And some researchers believe that increased fluoridation leads to increased pineal gland calcifications. And interestingly, the pineal gland of obese individuals is usually significantly smaller than those of lean individuals. And the colder the climate, the larger the pineal gland. My pineal gland must be really big because it's cold here, right? Anyways, and so the pineal gland is an important organ to synthesize neurosteroids from cholesterol, and these neurosteroids include testosterone. So this is like really, really important. And as you can see here, this is like those little white areas there, that's the calcification in the pineal gland. Okay.
Well, and then when you look at pineal gland function, this is the key to all of it, right? Because we know, as you were hitting on, how important the pineal gland is for metabolism and, like you said, sleep, but it's also the light center of the brain. And you got to go back and look at histories of research and why researchers that understood this started to put fluoride in the water supply in Germany in the 1930s in specific areas. And when we talk about the biomagnification issues of environmental toxins and how they're passed down from mother to infant and women to women to women, you go, okay, why do people act like they have their lights out? Well, because they're polluted. And the good thing is, decalcification of the pineal gland, which we've talked about so well over time, is quite easily done. But no one's done it as well as we have. Oh, and then we get into the fun one. Yay for endocrine function.
Well, during the years of 2007 to 2016, the parents of fluoride poisoned children reported over 190 studies on the effects of fluoride on thyroid hormones, including studies both on animals and humans. And some of the studies discovered the relationship between dental fluorosis and thyroid disease, and the effects of thyroid hormones on learning and memory was also investigated. So they also found that fluoride reduces the T3 and the T4 levels and has generational and cumulative effects on development of offspring. So again, this is, transgenerational. It's being passed on. So interestingly also is that up until 40 years ago, fluoride was actually prescribed as a treatment for overactive thyroid. Kidney damage is really interesting because kidney damage reviewed this, covers like 100 years of studies on the toxicity of fluoride on human and animal kidneys. And these studies reveal that there are direct adverse effects of kidneys on the excess of fluorides, leading to kidney damage and dysfunction. And with the exception of the pineal gland, the kidney is exposed to higher concentrations of fluoride than all other soft tissues. So therefore, exposure to higher concentrations of fluoride could contribute to kidney disease, ultimately leading to chronic kidney disease. So this was interesting here, Clayton, collagen. Conclusive evidence that collagen, now collagen is this blue stuff here, is basically the glue that holds you together. It's all this stuff in here. Well, collagen is the base material that forms the foundation of our skin. It's the largest organ in our bodies, and it's also a crucial part of the walls of our blood vessels. And the wrinkling of skin associated with aging is due to diminished collagen. Well, fluoride exposure disrupts the synthesis of collagen and leads to the breakdown of collagen in bone, tendon, muscle, skin, cartilage, lungs, kidneys, and your trachea.
So wait a minute.
Okay.
There's a huge craze about people taking collagen supplements. And I remember back in like 1995, when this craze happened the second time. And this is the hilarious part about how things recirculate, because I'm looking for my bell bottoms and some of my leisure suits, and
I could just
some
see
of
that.
my other corduroy pants and such, because I know they're coming back, baby.
And your velour tops. I just said, if I just saved my Hang 10 velour tops, I'd be styling now.
Oh man, not only that, you could buy 3 Bitcoin with that velour tux because of selling it and what people would pay for it. But when we look at collagen production, there's an interesting thing that happens. Your body produces it if you remove what inhibits it and you feed a couple of the key building blocks. So you go, is it more important to have the right environment? Or is it important to eat more collagen from chickens that are cooked down that, we talked about how toxic they are?
And you know what else you need, right? You need to have orthosilicic acid, or that release a lot of collagen, not collagen, but the silicone, right? that feeds the collagen. That you can create it yourself. You can make it yourself. You just need to.
Are you saying that it might be more valuable to actually clean up the environment and provide the catalyst that the body needs to produce collagen on its own versus buying into the marketing hype of buying animal collagen that could be completely toxic, that your body can't assimilate because you're already polluted and you can't do it properly? What would you be saying?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying, because what people don't understand is that when this exchange takes place, right, the air binds the toxins, binds the heavy metals, then what comes out of that, right? What comes out of that is what you need to make collagen.
So stop wasting money on collagen supplements and get your little friend that removes all the toxins that inhibits it, provides the trace minerals that are crucial to collagen and bone regeneration, and provides the orthosilicic acid or the bioavailable silicon dioxide that's needed to create that process. And here's the question: why is it that we have so many experiences and case studies of people having their skin look amazing, their nails start growing again, and their hair looking amazing? Wait for it. Collagen production that you can actually see. What do you think's going on in the rest of your body? A clue. But here's the biggest thing when people talk about collagen supplementation right now is they talk about, oh, I lost all this weight. What do we know about that? Well, what are you doing? You're releasing a massive amount of toxins back into your bloodstream that are going to have to be sequestered in other areas because you lack the mechanisms to remove all of that stuff. So what's more important? Get the toxins out, feed your body the building blocks, or spend a bunch of money on stuff that's not going to work very well and might end up poisoning you even more? Simple thought.
Okay, so here we go. Osteoporosis, a double-edged sword, right? So fluoride appears to be a double-edged sword, actually involved in prevention for cavities and bone health, but excess leads to osteoporosis and fracture. And osteoporotic fractures is a major public health problem. I mean, these fractures typically occur at the hip, spine, and the distal forearm. And water fluoridation has been widely proposed for its, the benefits, but concern has been raised about the balance of the skeletal risk and the benefits of this measure. In fact, let me see, there was a study, Mayo Clinic in the 1980s, Mayo Clinic researchers discovered that during controlled trials involving postmenopausal women, that fluoride increased bone mineral density, but also increased the incidence of fracture, especially in the lower extremities. So the research has been conflicting for fluoride therapy for osteoporosis. Is still very controversial. Okay.
So like adding more toxins to the body could be controversial. Who knew? Uh-oh.
I fixed it. Okay, so and this, we put it all together again this way here because it has to do with, your epigenetics, right? So in your epigenetics here, as you can see, I mean, this has to do with a DNA hypermethylation. It's actually changing the epigenetics. And then again, like, I don't think I mentioned this, but on the pineal gland, the pineal gland contains the highest concentration of fluoride. It's even higher than the bones in the teeth. I mean, it really sucks it in there. Let's see. Also, fluoride's been shown to be a mutagenic by causing chromosomal damage, interfering with the enzymes involved with DNA repair, and is in a variety of cells and tissue studies that were carried out in animals, and therefore, taking these DNA repair, telomerase, stem cell supplements really negates everything, because what you need to do, as Clayton mentioned earlier, was that you need to clean up first. And again, sodium fluoride at different concentrations was able to induce DNA damage in stem cells of deciduous teeth, with tons of, like I said before, like tons of these different types of products out there, stem cell products that's available on the market. As we like to say in Norway, bort kaste penger. So basically, money out the window. And as we just learned, fluoride inhibits collagen synthesis. And yeah. Oh, one last slide here. Well, this is kind of like almost the same thing like in the autism, what we saw. You know, we have your epigenetics, you got your chemicals, you got your environmental, and you got your heavy metals. It all kind of ties in together. And this is just kind of a helicopter view, but you can just see like how, you know, the increase in the fluoride with the pineal gland, you see the heavy metal absorption, the uptake of aluminum, all these different things, the kidney damage, prostate cancer, bone cancer, DNA damage, fertility issues are big, and then impaired thyroid function. But most of these things, as you can see, is centered around, you know, the brain. So,
and we call this checkmate.
Exactly. Here's how we can clean up the fluoride.
So, and this is what makes this entire process so beautiful, to where all of these other gurus in the we'll say the health and wellness world like to talk about problems, right? And you hear it so often. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is the problem. This is the problem. Okay. Yes, we can all agree. And Dori, this, you absolutely killed it. This is amazing. This, again, this is probably the best fluoride presentation ever. So everybody gets to give love for Dori for this. But
thank you.
We know about the problems, but here's the best part. You have the solution. And it's funny that people like use the term literally so often now as one of those things like saying that drives me nuts. Like, literally, this is what happened. Well, was it figurative? I mean, come on, seriously. But it is a literal solution, right? Because clean slate is in water. So as you chat with your friends, if you don't share this with people, you're out of your mind. But if you want the solution, it is so simple. It's safe, it's systemic, it's passive. And honestly, if you've watched this and you've made it to the end here with the hour that we've been able to share together, and you question the science, but you also want to understand the solution, join some of the Facebook groups. Ask the person that shared this with you what's happened with them. Look at all of the information on the pineal gland. Look at why people are sleeping better, why their hair is better, why their skin is better, why they feel better, why they're losing fat or losing weight and adding muscle. Because Dori, I'm going to give you credit. Dori keeps complaining to me that she's not losing weight, but her body's completely reconstructed. If you look at her, she's freaking glowing. Her skin looks amazing. Her cheeks are plump. She's got more muscle. And she's like, I'm not losing weight. You're right, because you're in better shape than you've been in 30 years. You've got more muscle. Your body looks amazing. Your hair is exceptional. And your husband is now doing the garbage and taking in the wood because he's on zero in and he's feeling better and he's making your life easier. Who doesn't want this? And thanks for coming. We love you guys. And Dori, you're amazing. And now everyone's waiting on the other channel.
Okay, well, we'll let you go. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next week, same time, same place, with a new topic.
Konnichiwa, my friends.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, here we go.